What's up? I'm Lucas Roth, 43 years old, father of three, husband, real estate guy, Seattle resident, um, pretend athlete, do it all. You know what I'm saying? So, putting some long form content out because I hate fitting my thoughts into 30 to 45 seconds. The premise of this is really one question that has been weighing on my mind for the last year or so, and this is a question that I'm guessing a lot of people run into and think a lot about and wonder about. And the question is, am I that guy? So you can be either that guy or you can be a guy. I think let's put everybody into two buckets. That guy has always been my mindset. I'm that guy. So throughout my life, I've had this idea that I'm dope. I'm talented. I'm hardworking. I get stuff done. I'm efficient. I'm creative, etc. Fill in the blank. And so at any moment in time, if I was not necessarily living up to my own expectations or I hadn't achieved any particular, level of success, it was fine because I was on my way. I was on the right path. I was getting there. Perhaps just hadn't gotten there quite yet, but it was just a matter of time. It was inevitable that the idea that I had in my mind of myself was going to be realized. And then you get to be 30, then you get to be 40, and right now I'm 43. And then you start really kind of grappling with that question. It's like, well, I don't, I've been alive a long time at this point. Can I still play that card of, oh, well, it's coming, it's coming? And to me, I feel like the answer is essentially no, you can't. There's at a certain point, you gotta actually fulfill those expectations. You gotta actually accomplish those things that you say you're going to and you think you're going to. So to just kind of give you a little bit of the arc of my life, um, grew up in Seattle, went to a really nice high school called Lakeside School. Um, went to the UW, graduated from there, served in between all that. I served a mission for 2 years in Portugal. Got married at 25. We had our first child at 27, then another one at 29. And we got three kids now. We got elementary, middle, and high school. Anyways, I really bounced around a few jobs, then landed in real estate. Real estate has been like a wonderful, wonderful thing for me and my family. We've been investors, we've been agents, we've been able to make money and pay the bills that way, um, and achieve some level of success. Now, when we got into real estate, I was about 30. I was about a little less than 30, but by the time I was 30, I said, you know what? I'm going to kill it with this real estate thing and I'm going to get retired. I'm retire before 40, right? And my 30s was great. We made a lot of money. I started out first year in real estate was about 100,000 of commissions and went up to 200, then 300, and went back down, I think a year or two, like probably below 200. But then it ended up being real consistent and good money. And the last full year that I was a real estate agent, my wife was always my assistant and helping me out. We did commissions of I think it was about $400,000 that last full year, which is 2021. So that was like a great like build up and feeling of success. We were able to pay bills. I was able to provide for the kids and buy the things that I felt we needed. And I wasn't having like this insane luxurious lifestyle, but it felt like okay, we're going to get there, right? Because we're building our wealth through real estate investment, buying some rental properties here and there. And then when I was about 37, 38, I was like, oh, am I going to hit this goal of being retired at 40? And I was like, well, not at the current trajectory. So we ended up actually selling a property or two, and then we ended up buying two motels. And I thought that was the ticket, like that would be the income, and we could actually do it. So at 39, it wasn't certain if we'd actually hit like financial independence. In fact, it was optimistic and hopeful to kind of imagine that we had, because we had just bought these two motels and I was like, well, they can do it. So I think I may have done it, but I wasn't sure. So we bought those motels in January and July of 2022. And then in August 2022, we moved to Portugal and we We ended up staying there for almost 3 years. We came back in the spring of 2025 in like April. So now during that period, that was a fateful 3 years. When we left, we had like $1 million. We just sold a couple properties. We had these two motels that I had high hopes for. I thought they were going to each make $5,000, $10,000 in profit every month. Um, so we had money in the bank. We supposedly had income, and we're going to go live this amazing life in Portugal. And I was like, oh, I'm that guy. I've done it. This is dope. I am dope. You know. And looking back, I was very cocky at that moment in time, which is understandable because, I had risen this huge wave of real estate appreciation. I'd become an agent during a time where, transactions were plentiful and commissions were good. And so, and everything I seemed to try ended up okay, at least. The worst thing we ever did was like probably try to develop a couple properties in real estate. And that was just kind of a big waste of time, but we didn't even lose money. We just bought a couple properties and permitted them and then got them through permits, and then just didn't have the cash to build them ourselves. So then we sold them off and basically got our money back. And that was kind of like the worst thing that happened, in all the things we were trying. So understandably, I have this mindset of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna be amazing at these motels, just like being an agent and being an investor, and we're gonna go live in Portugal and live this dream life. And I've done it. This is dope. But what ended up happening is we go to Portugal, and those motels don't do that well. We don't make any income at all. I mean, we weren't working; we were chilling, going to the beach, eating grilled chicken every day. Checking out Portugal, traveling a little bit around Europe, doing our thing. So it was great, but financially it was terrible. So didn't make any money. And you would think, and I thought that living in Portugal was going to be really cheap compared to America, but that was not the case. And the reason is, when you go to Portugal and you're an American family, you're trying to live an American lifestyle. You want to live in like a comfortable, nice house, which you're familiar with, like the open layout and a good size and a good location, and be able to eat out, not just eat, Portuguese food at the house every day, but go out to restaurants. Well, that's your, and then educate your kids. We did a public school at first, but it was just a terrible experience. They didn't hire enough teachers. The kids had no classes to go to for a lot of big chunks of every day. And there was just huge problems. So we had to put them in a private school. So now we're paying for private school. So essentially, we exported our lifestyle to Portugal, and so we paid American prices to receive American experiences and services and everything. So it wasn't cheaper at all. I mean, shoot, around here we spend easily 20 grand a month just with three kids in public school. Not doing anything crazy, but just, I don't know, somehow you spend 20 grand a month. It's a mystery to me how that's happened, which of course shouldn't be a mystery. It should be locked in and budgeted and watched. But as long as you're making enough money and you're feeling comfortable with what you're spending, you're gonna skip all those like nitty gritty things. But so, anyways, so going to Portugal, you're spending 20 grand a month. You're not making any money. Um, and then after a couple of years, after like that last year that we were in Portugal, we ended up um, opening a bubble tea store. So this is insanity, but this really happened, and I really did this. So I had the idea of like, hey, there's no good bubble tea here in Portugal. We liked Happy Lemon bubble tea in Seattle. There's a bunch of stores and franchises here. So I hit them up. I was like, oh, I'll open this here. They said, okay, send us 50 grand. And then we did that. Then they, were like, okay, now send us 150 grand for like all these ingredients and equipment, which, the EU didn't accept and Portugal didn't accept. We couldn't import it. It got stuck in customs. Then we had to do a big remodel of a store in a mall in Lisbon. So, in every sense, this was like the wrong move to do. It was the wrong country to open a business in. I mean, if you're going to open a business in America, it's hard. Doing it in Portugal is like, how am I going to say this? No, you know, opening a business in America is like you're going to step into the ring with like a fighter, you know, and you are going to get knocked out if you're not ready and you're not really trained up and disciplined and everything, right? And that's opening a business in America. Opening a business in Portugal would be like um, stepping into the ring with both hands tied behind your back, and then trying to fight that same guy. It was nothing but nonsense, nothing but nonsense. I could write books about the silliness, but just to give you like a quick little like glimpse, for instance, it's like we're opening this bubble tea store, and there's of course like safety checks. That would be the case in any country, but this woman, like, health and safety comes and she's like, okay, and then she's just like designed this insanity process whereby every time we opened any bag of ingredients, so we'd have like a lot of powders, for instance, as bubble tea, you're just constantly mixing powders and tea, and every time you opened a 1 kilogram bag of powder, which is not very big, they're small bag, but okay, you have to write down the lot number, the manufacturing date, the expiration date, where it came from, the date you opened it. You have to write that down in three places. You have to write it down in a log, in a notebook. Then you have to write it down on a sticker. Then you have to put the sticker on the bag. And then you have to do it in another sheet that's kept in a separate, notebook. And my first question was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would I copy down the information from the bag onto a sticker and then put the sticker onto the same damn bag? It doesn't make any sense. Why would I have to do that? Well, the answer is because when you open this bag, you might cut the corner that has that information on it. And so you might not have the information. And then you would be out of compliance. So you have to like write it on a sticker and then so you're literally copying the same information that's on the bag onto a sticker and then putting the sticker back onto the bag. It's crazy. And then, of course, the question is, but why would I even need that information? Well, if there's a recall, then you would know, okay, you need to get rid of that ingredient. I'm like, well, how does that have to do? Yeah, I can do that without writing any of this down. Oh, well, you need to let the customers know. The customer, we don't collect their information. Every time you buy a bubble tea, you have to give us your email and your phone number. No, they buy it, they go away. We don't know who they are. Anyways, that's an aside. But like I said, that's just like that was just like a regular Tuesday. That was just a regular ass nothing. That's just basic stuff. And imagine waking up and just fighting that dragon every day for a year, which is what we did. So, anyways, finally, after we fought with customs and fought with everybody and the general contractor just to get the store open and the plumbing stopped working, all that stuff, finally, we realized that nobody wants bubble tea. These guys want coffee, and they only want coffee. They don't want tea. They don't want bubble tea. They don't want to try it. They don't want to try the boba. They don't want to try nothing. You know what I mean? So did all that work, spent all that money. Long story short, it was like $500,000, which is just insane. Like, looking back at that, I'm like, wow. And at the same breath, though, I'm like, I actually needed that lesson. That was a lesson that I just had to have. Like, I wasn't going to learn to scale my bets. I wasn't going to learn to just like worry about the worst case scenario. I wasn't going to worry about any of that stuff. You couldn't tell me nothing at that point in my life. And at that point, in our financial experience, it was just like, no, like everything I do is dope. Like, don't worry, it'll work out. And that's what I told myself. It's what I told my wife for a very long time, all throughout that. I mean, there was a million signs that were like, don't do this, bro. And every one of those signs, I looked at it, I read it, I noted it, and then I was like, no, I'm so good that I'll just move right past this do not enter sign, and I'll just go right down this wrong way, this one-way street, and it'll be totally fine. And it was totally fine until I lost $500,000, and then finally I was like, all right, I learned that lesson. So that put a real sour taste in my mouth, right? So I'm painting you a picture basically right now. From 39 years old, from when I went to Portugal at 39, for those next 3 years, I steadily deconstructed this whole life and this whole image of myself that I'd built up over a long period of time. You know what I'm saying? So when I went there, I was like, yeah, I'm dope. Everything I do is good. I make money. I make it happen. everything's fine. And then slowly, the money disappeared. It wasn't even that slowly, it was pretty fast. But the money disappeared. And then I'm not making money, right? So I don't have that constant reassurance kind of like, okay, yeah, you're successful. I had no reinforcement of my idea that I was successful. And then I lose a whole ton of money. And that money was like our retirement money, that was the retirement account, just disappeared, you know? And so I found myself at a completely different space when I was 42. Yeah, 42 years old than I would have been at 39, right? In just a short span of 3 years, all, I went from that guy to a guy. Yeah, a guy that had a cool experience going to Portugal and made some money and was kind of successful in real estate for a while. To suddenly a guy that's 42 years old, has 3 kids and a wife, has walked away from a pretty successful real estate agent business, and basically left it in the dust and just threw it away. So and then went to Portugal and then lost all his money. Lost all his money. And so I came back to America. We still had some property. We still had the 2 motels when we came back, and we had 3 houses, and we were able to move back into the house that we were in before we left because we had just rented it out. So the tenant left, we moved back in. And then I find myself just like with this question in my mind and in my heart: am I that guy? Because at this point, if I have to look at the facts and look at reality, I absolutely am not. Simply put, I am not. And much as I would like to be, or as much as I thought like, oh, I was on the right track, maybe I could have been, it's just like, well, that guy doesn't waste all his money opening stupid bubble tea stores. Well, it wasn't even stores. It was one store in Portugal. And by the way, opening up a bubble tea store, my goodness, if I had only taken the time to like investigate and do it on my own, you could open a bubble tea store with like $5,000. It's literally pots and pans, boiling tea, and then like cooking, like boiling tapioca balls. I mean, you need a fridge, a freezer, a counter, a couple little equipment, a cup machine. It's so insanely simple. And so to look back at $500,000 just like getting piled up in a big heap in my backyard and just torched to dust, it's just like, you look back at that and you're just like, yeah, no, that's not that guy. So, but, but, but to be honest though, it's like, I still haven't let go of that idea. Like, no, I am that guy. Like in my heart and in my mind, I still think that, but I have to recognize maybe that's not true. And at that point in time, coming back from Portugal, I can promise you, it felt not true at all. Since I've come back, I've been back about 1 year. I've kind of got my footing a little bit. We started up the real estate, which is very slow now. We're not making anything like we were making. I mean, this year, um, you know, we've closed like 3 transactions. It is May. That's insane. And we got a bunch of listings coming up, and we'll sell, and it'll come back. But it's just like, yeah, the income is not there. Um, Fortunately, we were able to sell one of those motels for good money, and got a bunch of money back. We sold it for $1.9 million. We bought it for $1 million right before we went to Portugal, and then managed it remotely. I mean, we hired managers who ran it. It never really made any money. It didn't, not really. It did not make any money, any profits the whole time we were gone. In fact, it lost, probably like $200,000. And then, we put in like a few $100,000 in renovations, but we bought it for $1 million, which was a good purchase, and we sold it for 1.9, which was a good sale. So we got a chunk of money back, got some breathing room. The the devourer was at my heels, but was put off for a little bit. So, anyways, to refocus the conversation, like, am I that guy or am I not that guy? I really feel like I know that the vast majority of people are not that guy. They're a guy, and they become completely content and happy with that. And I think the studies would show that people's life, happiness, it goes up as they get over the hump of like having little kids, taking care of their parents. And also, a big piece of it, from what I've read, is that people just decide, you know what, I'm happy how I am now. Like, I don't need to be this or be that or accomplish this or accomplish that. It's like I have the ingredients of happiness already right now, and which I think is great. But I know that I'm not built that way. I know that I don't feel I just have a sense that I'm not going to be happy. I've never been about the money, like in the like I really don't care what car I drive. I really don't care about having a big nice house, watches, clothes. None of those things have ever really appealed to me. It's not about those kinds of things. The last thing I do is like go into debt to like buy a flashy car or something like that. Like that's not me. But desperately, I do need the validation, my self validation, which is like, no, you are successful, you are dope, you are that guy. So I feel like I'm beating that phrase into the ground, right? This is kicking off a new phase for me on social media. I've been doing a lot of short videos. I've gotten really sick and tired of doing the short videos. It doesn't really, you can't put anything meaningful into 30 or 45 seconds onto Instagram. All you can do is like a little kind of essentially a meme or a meaningless like little hack or something like that. I'm really sick and tired of that. I'm not going to do it anymore, I don't think. I love not being on social media. I turned my social media off like 2 weeks ago. Haven't looked at it, and I love it. I get more focused, I get more done. So I'm not going to do a lot of like comments or, seeing what people are liking or not liking. But what I am going to do is start doing these videos every week is what I'm trying to do, and then post parts of it onto Instagram just to let people know like little tidbits of it, and I have somebody else do that for me. But this question is what will be answered. I'm nothing if not honest. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a pretender. If I'm not successful, I'll just say, hey, I'm not successful. Like about the bubble tea store, I'll tell you, I messed up. I did a terrible thing with it. I did a horrible job with it. The reason why I'm comfortable saying those things is because in my heart, I believe that someday I will be very, very successful. So if I'm not successful at this moment, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm still gonna get there. So I've obviously posed the question, am I that guy or not? Or am I a guy? Now I've kind of explained to you my mindset, which is that I am. I am. And I've also explained that tension, which is that in reality, any third party observer would say, you are not. You absolutely are not. So that's the tension, and that's what I'm going to explore, and that's what I am going to find out. And, you know, unless I'm lying to you, I'm going to videotape it. People are going to see. I mean, people are going to see whether I videotape it or not. You know what I'm saying? People know, people over the course of the years and the decades, people who are really successful and are dope, it becomes apparent. People know. And if you're not, also people know. Anyways, so that's me. That's Lucas Roth. That's my initial opening salvo. This is what I'm going to be doing every week. Is doing a lot of real estate. It's going to be my life-based stuff, but it's going to be a lot of real estate. I love real estate, man. I'm going to give you a lot of tips about real estate. Not, it's not like that. It's not a lot of tips. I'm just going to document like what am I doing, and I got a lot of I think really cool stuff going on. I'm building a little system for sending out mailers to find distressed sellers. I'm gonna start. I've been targeting probate leads a little bit, trying to find distressed sellers to find properties to buy. But we bought another motel, so we got two motels now. We got some rental properties. We bought an eightplex, so thank goodness we sold that motel for good money because we've put that money to good use. We've bought. I spent $50,000 to put a down payment on a motel, so we got a motel about 2 months ago. And then 3 months ago, we bought an eightplex. All of that, both of those properties are right next to our other motel, which are all in northeastern Washington State, which is north of Spokane, kind of in between Spokane and Canada. So, anyways, I'm gonna do a lot of videos about real estate because I really care about that stuff. But I'm gonna do some stuff about my faith. which is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm gonna do stuff about the family. Shoot, we might even talk about sex. I think that would be super fun. I love talking about all that stuff. So that's me, Lucas Roth. Again, am I that guy? We don't know. We do not know yet.